How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and today we are back with Chapter 11 of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Breakdown series, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this one, so I'm going to jump straight into it. I'm not going to mess about. Like the video, subscribe for future content, do all of the things. Also, I'm going to try and make this one not an hour long. To be fair, this one we should be able to get through in about 30 minutes or so, probably. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how many tangents I go on. Let's get on with it. So, the previous chapter, Chapter 10, was all about Cosmo Canyon. It was learning the truth about Seto and Red 13, Nanaki, kind of realising that, he didn't really know shit. We met the Gi tribe, we learned about the Black Materia, about the creation of the Black Materia, and Sephiroth made it clear to Cloud that he wants the Black Materia. There was a lot of other stuff that happened as well, but that was the main stuff. And after all of that had finished, we needed to find a terminal. So, Kate Sith suggests that we head to Nibelheim, where there's definitely a terminal. And immediately, Tifa and Cloud are a little bit like, is there a terminal there? The place kind of burned down a bit. But Kate tells us everything's going to be fine, so we head over there, we land at the airstrip in the Nibelheim region, and pretty much immediately after getting off, Cloud has a little memory flicker, and he flashes back to a memory of him following Sephiroth. And he tells Sephiroth to wait up, and Sephiroth just turns over his shoulder a little bit and says, "Bring me the Black Materia." So he's not giving Cloud a rest or anything, he's getting straight into it. He's like, "Yo, bring me that Black Materia." And as Cloud comes out of that vision, he sees a black cloak, he draws his sword, he panics a little bit, and Red 13 points out that it's almost as if the black cloak stopped by Cosmo Canyon just to lead us here. And have you been paying attention, Red? That's pretty much what's been going on, but I digress. I mean, the guy turned up and said Nibelheim. You know what I mean? It's like, how does it get any more suggestive than that? Moving on. Tifa helps to calm Cloud down and kind of snap him out of it, and then we head forwards towards Nibelheim. Now, as we start travelling, Cloud brings up the point that the terminal's probably gone because Nibelheim burned down 10 years ago. But Kate Sith points out that there's nothing to worry about. The terminal is completely fine, and Shinra weren't going to let that facility burn down. Cloud asks, does he mean the reactor? And Kate definitely does not mean the reactor. Kate definitely means the Shinra mansion. But these are things that we'll learn about when we actually get to Nibelheim. And as we're crossing over the area, there's not a massive amount to do. You can go and get the Chocobo if you want to. You can go and catch the Chocobo straight away. And if you do get the Chocobo right away, it just makes it super easy to get to Nibelheim. You just travel across the water, basically. You just follow the river upstream until you get to the bridge. Now, I will say, this is the weirdest Chocobo traversal mechanic that we've got so far. It's basically just doing a high-powered piss, I think. I think that's what's going on. Just a high-powered wee. And that's making it travel. It's a bit weird. But eventually, we follow the bridge, we follow the Black Cloaks, and we reach Nibelheim. Now, Tifa's immediate reaction is shock, and as it should be, because the town is standing. Everything's fine. Everything looks normal. It isn't, though. And we discover this when Tifa just kind of walks up to one of the posts that's holding the sign to the entrance, and she says how it's brand new. It's not the old, rusted metal that was there when they were kids. It's brand new. Barrett puts his foot in his mouth nearly when he says, "Oh god, I thought Cloud lost it again," when Tifa says that they rebuilt the whole town. And it's pretty funny the way Red just gives him a little nudge like, "Oh, hey, easy now." And Barrett's like, oh, I thought he got us lost again. Yeah, he got us lost again. It's just a funny little scene. I love Barrett. Barrett's great. Anyway, we head into Nibelheim on the hunt for the terminal, and Kate Sith definitely leads the charge on this because, they're the one that's going to use the terminal. As you're walking around the town, you do catch a little bit of conversation here and there. Most of it's nonsense, but there is one other person who's kind of like, what happened to Nibelheim? Why is everything different? Where are all the people that used to live here when I was last here? So, we're not the only people that are a little bit, what's going on? What is this? And the other thing is, as you're going around, you can pick up on a vibe that a lot of the people here are caring for the Black Cloaks, looking after the Black Cloaks. And we'll get into this in a second. But one of the points that is made is that up until recently, they just all used to kind of stand around and do nothing. But now they've become more active. And that is 100% going to be because of the influence of Sephiroth and the influence of Genova and the impending reunion. When we get to the centre of the town near the clock tower, Tifa and Cloud have a look around, and they're both very suspicious of everything that's going on. You know, the locals that aren't really the locals. But while this conversation's going on, we get interrupted by one of the staff members here, and Kate Sith jumps into action talking about how they're an employee of Shinra Resorts, obviously downplaying who they really are and what kind of clearance they really have. But Kate says that we're looking for the terminal, and then the supervisor says, well, what about your friends here? And Tifa immediately jumps in like, oh, I used to live here. And this leads to the supervisor telling us what Nibelheim is now. He tells us that 5 years ago Shinra took control over the village, and that it's now a treatment centre for Mako poisoning. But it's obviously not a treatment centre for Mako poisoning, it is obviously a treatment centre for people who've been tested on with Jenova. That's what it is. He basically asks us to take care of our business and leave quickly, because, you know, we're not wanted here at this point. We get in the way. So Kate Sith runs off to use the terminal, while we have a little look around the town. You can climb the water tower with Aerith and have a little bit of a reminisce about Nibelheim. Cloud has a flashback to the fire, the burning of Nibelheim, but he snaps out of it and he talks to Aerith. And he points out all of the local landmarks, so the inn, everything like that. And he finishes off pointing out Tifa's house, and as we look over there we see Tifa in the window, and Aerith asks Cloud if this is where he used to keep a lookout for Tifa, you know, would he sit here and hope that she'd wave to him? And, you know, he obviously did. He obviously sat there waiting for Tifa to notice him. And Aerith points out that if she was in his shoes, she would have been up here all the time as well. Now the conversation ends, but you can interact with Aerith again, and we get a little bit of a different conversation with her. She says that she wants to be alone, and Cloud asks if she's angry, and she says, yeah, but not at you, Cloud. She feels like she's missed out because of the childhood that she had, the fact that she was constantly locked up by a Shinra and kept away from having a proper childhood. And she sees all of these memories that people have got, even if some of them are bad and some of them have led to bad things like the burning of Nibelheim, there's still these memories that Cloud and Tifa have, and other people like Barra and Red 13 and Yuffie, of their childhoods and their youth. And Aerith doesn't have that. So she's feeling a bit salty, she's feeling a bit upset, and rightly so. But she says to Cloud that she doesn't want to take it out on him, she'll catch up with him soon. So we leave Aerith alone and we go and explore around Nibelheim a little bit more. The next thing we do is we head to Cloud's house and we meet the head chef. Now we head inside and we learn a little bit more about the Black Cloaks, or at least the information that these characters in this village have got. And this character, the head chef, she suggests that there are maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 different types of the Black Cloak. It seems to be that you've got ones that have got the tattoos on them and one that haven't. You've got the ones that have got like injection marks and things like that, and ones that haven't. You kind of have a few different variations of them, but I think it just generally boils down to all of them have had some sort of contact with Jenova. It just seems to depend on how that contact manifested. Were they in Hojo's lab? Were they a soldier attempt? You know, an attempt to create a soldier? Were they just someone who got unlucky? Were they one of the survey teams? There are a lot of different types of people that could have A, got excessive Mako poisoning, but also been experimented on with Jenova. And it seems, again, this is what Nibelheim's for now. And it makes complete sense given the fact that this is where a lot of the experimentation and the testing originally took place. You know, this is where the Jenova project began. So it definitely makes sense that this has become the facility to care for and obviously continue testing. You know, they're obviously still gathering data on these people. So yeah, this is a weird place. Nibelheim's very weird, and it must be super unnerving for like Cloud and Tifa to come back to this and see the state that the place is in. Insane. Next, we can head over to Tifa's house, and we can have a conversation with Tifa up in her bedroom where she talks about she was confused about why her dad went to the reactor to face off against Sephiroth after Nibelheim had burned, knowing that he was certainly going to die. But she said that as she's got older, she's kind of figured it out and it makes sense, you know. Everything had been burnt to the ground and destroyed by Sephiroth. There was nothing left, so he had to go and face him. And it's the same deal with them and Shinra and the battle that they're in, and how the anger that she had led her to joining Avalanche and going on the missions that they went on. And then Cloud turning up helped Tifa out of a bit of a rut where she was kind of doubting things. But now she's 100% in the mindset that Sephiroth and Shinra need to be stopped. So she feels like everything was right and everything was worth it, and she's made the correct decisions. We leave there and we head over to the inn, and as we walk into the inn we see a figure heading up the stairs. Wonder who that could be. We have a quick chat to Barrett before we head upstairs, and Barrett's on his usual rant, and it's fair enough. He's talking about how Nibelheim had been burned to the ground and then rebuilt, and you know, if he knew about what had happened to Calm, he'd have a meltdown, because he already knows about what happened to Corel, and it's just more of the same from Shinra. And it's just every single incident that Barrett's witnessing is just reinforcing his hatred for Shinra and the fact that we need to do something. We need to stop them, because otherwise they're just going to keep doing it. You can catch up with Yuffie and Red 13 at the pathway up towards the Shinra Manor and Mount Nibel. Yuffie obviously talking about materia as per usual. And Red kind of talks shit about Nibelheim and how something doesn't feel right. But then Red immediately backs down from there like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk shit about your hometown. And Cloud, if you make the correct dialogue choice, the 3-star dialogue choice, basically Cloud just says, this isn't my hometown, mate. My hometown burned down. So, yeah, fun little moment. Anyway, I think it's time to head up the stairs in the inn and see who that figure was that was going up there that we saw. Wonder who that could be. Cloud heads up the stairs, and the Genova flicker intensifies as he's heading up the stairs, to the point where he gets into the bedroom and a full-on Genova vision just takes over for him. And Cloud remembers. And I'm going to be real now, literally as I said that, I just got chills, because this was one of the most mind-blowing moments in the game for me. Like, a lot of people have spoke about the changes and the things that are different in the game, and Cloud's mental state is one of the big things that is different. And this realization that Cloud is about to have is insane. He doesn't have this in the OG until after the live stream, well, during the live stream scene. There's none of this. He doesn't remember who Zack is, he doesn't even know that Zack is a possibility. So the fact that he not only remembers that Zack exists, but also remembers conversations that he had with him, and then his name, just of his own accord, just chilling, wild. Absolutely wild moment. Cloud starts seeing a vision of a conversation that he and Zack had back when they came to Nibelheim on the mission. And Zack's doing his usual thing, you know, he's talking about women, he's bragging about his girlfriend, Aerith at the time. And all the way through the scene, we can't see Zack's face, we don't see it, but we hear the conversation, we see the conversation, and then right at the end of it, Zack leans back and we get to see his full face. And immediately Cloud snaps out of it and remembers Zack. Zack Fair from Gongaga. And all the way through this scene where Cloud's talking through this memory that he's just uncovered, Genova is flickering, the effect of Genova is flickering. And Cloud's memory is actively being adapted as we go. And it's going to continue to be adapted. Because at the end of this scene, Cloud finishes with, where are you? What happened to you? So there is an unknown now in Cloud's mind. A gap in Cloud's memory that needs to be filled. And like I say, we'll get to that later. Anyway, the scene ends, we run over to the town hall, and we have a chat with Kate Sith. And we find out that we can't get access to the system here, we need to use the terminal that's in the Shinra Manor. Now, Mr. Supervisor Man can't give us access to that, so we have to go and find Dr. Murasaki, who is currently up at the Reactor doing some research or getting a report together for Shinra. We decide that we're going to head up there, we can't wait for him to come back, he's not due back for another day or two. That's not going to work for us, so we decide to head up to the Reactor. And again, we split the party like we have done previously. This time, heading up to the Reactor is Cloud, Yuffie and Tifa, with the rest of the team waiting behind for us to, you know, do all the heavy lifting. So, let's go do some lifting. There's a fun little moment when we're deciding who goes where Tifa points out that she's the best there is at getting up the mountain path. You know, little callback to the flashback, which is pretty fun. And Kate Sith points out that there's a new bridge that's been put in place to replace the old damaged one, so it should be a much easier task to get up there. After this, we get some cutscenes, so we head back to Midgar at this point, and we've got Rufus just chilling at his desk reading over some stuff, and Heidegger turns up, and he reports to Rufus that the Nibelheim survey team has been ambushed by Wutai. And this is the precursor for war, basically. This is it, we're getting going now. Rufus and Heidegger can begin to set the gears in motion, and we'll get a little bit more of that before the chapter's ended. But at the end of that scene, we cut back to the group, and the mission is to just climb the mountain and get to the reactor. And not a huge amount really happens on the way there. That is, until we get to the point where we'd fallen in the flashback, everyone's fallen off the bridge and landed, and we kind of go across a bridge just above that area. And as soon as Cloud sees it, the memory kicks in. And the area is where we saw one of the Shinra grunts get swept away. Sephiroth tried to reach out and save him, couldn't do it. And Cloud remembers this. And as he's remembering it, he rewrites the memory. And we see the images that he's seeing in his memory flick between the Shinra grunt floating down the river to be lost, and it being replaced with Zack. And then back to the Shinra trooper, and then back to Zack. And this is Genova editing Cloud's memory on the fly, so that he now has an answer for what happened to Zack. And he tells Tifa that immediately. He's like, I remember what happened to Zack. And he tells the story to Tifa, and Tifa obviously knows that this isn't true. But again, she doesn't say anything. And again, she apologizes for not having said anything already. So she goes along with the delusion that Cloud's having right now. And I get why, because previously she was doing it to kind of keep Cloud under control and keep an eye on him and stay near him. In this moment, it's kind of like Cloud's actually made a step in the right direction. He is actually starting to remember things. He's remembering them wrong, but he's getting there. So I kind of get why Tifa doesn't just go, well, no, dickhead, actually this is what happened, and just kind of corrects everything. I get why she doesn't do it in this moment. Cloud puts this down to degradation, because this is the suggestion that's been kind of thrown at him over and over again. It's the degradation. And it's the easy cope for him to use at this point. We'll learn more in the future, but for now this is where Cloud is. Cloud is of the opinion that the degradation is messing with his memory, and he's finally remembered that Zack floated off down the river to his death. That's where we're at right now with Cloud. That is the state of Cloud. Let's continue. We press on a little bit further and we get into the Materia Cave. Again, the Materia Cave that we encountered in the Nibelheim flashback. Cloud has a weird little moment. He has a little Genova flicker. He sees Sephiroth. And then he starts being Sephiroth again. And we saw this previously in the Gongaga chapter where he was fighting like Sephiroth and acting a bit like Sephiroth. And in this moment, he pretty much recites Sephiroth's speech about the Mako Spring from the Nibelheim flashback, and Tifa interrupts him as soon as she realises what's going on. She's straight onto it like, whoa, we should get moving, son, let's go. Because, yeah, Sephiroth's got his hooks in so deep on Cloud at the minute. Like, his hooks are so deep. Like, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy doesn't get hooks in this deep. Like, these hooks are deep. A fisherman doesn't get hooks in this deep. Any kind of hook-based thing you can think of, it ain't as deep as Sephiroth's got Cloud at the minute. So, yeah, Tifa does a good job by breaking this moment. She notices what's going on, and she breaks it up. As we're climbing up the cliff face to get to the reactor, Yuffie tells us that, you know, this ain't shit. I used to climb Dachau for fun, you know, just for some, we're going to call them Senzu beans. That's it, the Senzu beans from now on. Yeah, she used to climb Dachau for Senzu beans. Canon. But this is a fun little moment. Hopefully it's kind of foreshadowing that when we do go to Wutai, we're going to be able to do these sort of things. We're going to be able to climb up Dachau and stuff like that. I'm looking forward to Wutai. Like, given the expansion that all of the other areas of the game have received, you got to think about Wutai. It's a super blank slate. It's a giant continent with one little town on it in the OG. There is so much stuff that they could add into that area and flesh out. So, very much looking forward to that. Super into it. We also have a little chat about how Murasaki is a very Wutai sounding name. from Yuffie, that is, and Cloud points out that a lot of people will have come here like prior to the war and after the war and since the ceasefire, and there's a lot of immigration between the two nations. That's basically the conversation. But then we get to do the slidey pipe thing. If you remember from the OG, you do the slidey pipe thing, you got loads of items that you can get if you go different ways in the pipes. I haven't bothered. Let me know in the comments below if you've gone down every single pipe path. Is there anything fun there? Anything interesting to find? I should probably do it, but I'm lazy. Anyway, the conversation continues about people going to Wutai and people coming from Wutai to Midgar, and Yuffie talks about Colonel Lodbrok, who turned up with his squad made up completely of ex-soldiers who've all given the finger to Shinra, which is interesting. Very interesting. That suggests that there's more than just Glenn, Matt, and Lucia. That's what that suggests to me. A squad. 3 people? A squad? Is it? I don't know. And Yuffie keeps pushing. She's trying to recruit everybody. She's trying to recruit Cloud. And she wants to start the Yuffie Recon Patrol, the YRP. And I vomited a little bit in my mouth the moment I heard it because it immediately made me think of Final Fantasy X-2. But then I shook it off. I've got a strong constitution, so it's okay. It's okay. God, what did they do to Brother in that game, man? But after much climbing and jumping and elevatoring and talking, we finally reach the front steps of the reactor, and immediately we find Wutai troops dead. Now, Yuffie immediately basically says, well, this must mean we're at war. And it throws Yuffie's mission into a bit of chaos because she's like, well, they know what I'm out here doing, so what now? Because she was sent here to look for the ultimate materia. So if a war's kicked off now and no one's let Yuffie know anything, what's the current situation? Yuffie's having a bad moment right now. Very confused about what's going on. But forget that. We're going to head into the reactor. We'll deal with Wutai in the next game. Yep, Wutai, next game. Moving on. We head into the reactor and Yuffie's talking about how she had literally no clue that there was an operation being planned and that she should have been there. She could have helped these troops. She could have saved them. And Cloud points out, like, you've been doing other things, you've been helping us a lot. You can't be everywhere all at once, don't blame yourself. And it's a nice little supportive moment from Cloud. He's getting better at doing things like that. I do love him. Now, once we get inside, we end up fighting against a diabolic variant, which really makes me think of one of the forms of Hojo from the OG. I'm pretty sure there's another boss fight that's very reminiscent of the forms of Hojo. I think it's the second form, you know, the one with the weird claw arm. Or is that the first form? I actually can't remember. It's definitely not the third form, but I can't remember if it's the first or the second. I'll flash it up on screen now. I think it's the second, you know. Yeah, it's the second. It's the second form. It's the second form, I'm confident. But yeah, it's quite reminiscent of that form. Not entirely, but it's kind of like Hojo's working towards something. He's cooking. And he'll get there by the end of the game. Well, the third game. Anyway, we kill it, because obviously. And then we find a dead Murasaki, which is a problem, but you know, we can at least take his keycard. Also, when we find Murasaki, it's very reminiscent of the scene that Tifa will have stumbled across when she found her dad dead at the hands of Sephiroth. She has a big anxiety/PTSD moment, like flashing back to it, and Cloud pulls her out of it. But yeah, we found Murasaki, which, you know, he's dead, which is a bad thing, but makes it easier to get the keycard off him, I suppose. So we do that, and then we head into the inner sanctum of the Nibelheim macro reactor, the room where everything changed. And not a lot happens. Like, there's nothing really going on in there. Cloud looks up at the sign above the door and has a little bit of a Genova moment. And it's a weird one as well, because he runs and jumps at Sephiroth and slashes down at him. And Sephiroth invades the moment a little bit. And again, it's very similar to that one from the start of the chapter where we're at the airstrip, where it's a memory, but it's not. And Sephiroth in the moment saying, bring me the black materia. And in this moment, he's saying, soon, Cloud. Soon. We'll fight soon. So, Sephiroth's, again, like I say, hooks are in super deep. Super deep. Anyway, we reach out to Cait Sith. We let Cait Sith know that we've got the keycard, and that everything's okay, and that Murasaki's dead. And Cait Sith reacts badly to the last bit of news about Murasaki being dead. So we put the keycard into the machine, Cait Sith does something with it, and that's the end of the adventure with Cloud and the gang. Now we get to play as Cait Sith. God damn it. Anyway, we head into the Shinra Manor, we go down the elevator, and we immediately get hit with a Hojo hologram. A Hojogram. Hojogram? It worked. Now, it's a pre-recorded Hojogram, unfortunately, not a live Hojogram. And he points out that everything of value is gone, we can have a poke around. And then he opens a trapdoor that we're stood in, and we fall all the way into a prison cell, and we probably die there if we don't have Cait Sith with us. I'm going to be real. We probably die down there if we don't have Cait Sith with us. But we do. We do have Cait Sith with us. And what is about to happen is a lot of annoying rolling around with Cait Sith, throwing boxes at things, fighting things that are just a bit annoying to fight when you've just got Cait on their own. We do get the yin-yang fight, which is okay, but I would have rather fought it with the whole party rather than just a weird little fight with only Cait Sith. I don't know. It was fun though, it was good to see. Like, we fully expected this to become like a little mini-boss a la Hell House, you know, something very similar to that. And it kind of is, but it also isn't. It wasn't as exciting or as difficult as I thought it was. It was just a bit of an annoying pain in the arse of a fight. Anyway. We finally beat up Yin and Yang, and Cait is reunited with Barrett and Aerith. So we carry on moving, and we've got like the box throwing game that everyone hates apparently. I've nailed it twice on my first attempts, if that makes sense. First time I played the game, nailed it. And then playing through now, nailed it first time. Some of us are just built different. That's all I can think of. Some of us are just built different. But eventually, we keep on moving. We don't have to throw any more boxes, and everything is good with the world. We then open the safe, and if you've played the OG, you don't need to look at the wall, you know the code. Thankfully, you're not locked into going left and right, and it doesn't matter if you overshoot or anything like that. All you have to do is put the numbers in correctly. But the end result is the same, and we end up in a fight with Forgotten Specimen, or, as we all know him, Lost Number. We beat Lost Number up, as was always going to be the case, and Hojo after that is like, oh cool, you killed the specimen, I don't need to be here to keep an eye on it anymore, peace. And Hojo, Graham, Hollow Joe, whatever we're going to call him, he just leaves. He's just, alright cool, I can uninstall myself now. So he does, and then everyone gathers in the basement area under the Shinra Manor. We catch back up with Cloud and everybody you've met up here, and it is now time to go and look at the terminal. But while we're looking for a terminal, we stumble across a weird room. A weird room with a casket in the middle of it. And yeah, we all know what's going on here. We found Vinny. We found Vinny. Now Vinny bursts out of his casket, making a big scene and a big flowery show. And I'm surprised Cloud didn't cut him in half as it happened. Like, I'm genuinely surprised that Cloud didn't just start swinging and Barrett didn't just start shooting. Like, I would. Something jumps out of a casket in the middle of a room. Yeah, I'm dealing with that shit. But Vincent pops out and he's all, who dares disturb my slumber, like he is in the OG. He points out that he's now security for this place. Anyway, we tell him that we need to look at the terminal, and he checks if we've got the clearance, with a little bit of help from Cait Sith to figure out how to use the handheld device. And he challenges us a bit upon realising that we are clearly not Mr. Murasaki, but then he finds out that we're hunting Sephiroth. And the usual thing happens from the OG. Vincent feels a degree of responsibility for Sephiroth and what's going on with Sephiroth. And if you know, you know. We won't jump into it yet because it doesn't really get explored in Rebirth, but if you've played the OG, you know the deal with Vincent and his involvement in Sephiroth's past. But we'll jump into that properly when it eventually comes up. For now, it doesn't officially come up, so we'll bypass it. Vincent points out that he's got one more sin to atone for now, gets back in his casket and tells us to do what we need to do. So we do. We head into the room with the terminal, and Cait gets to business, jumping straight in there and getting the information that we need. While this is going on, Cloud has a little look around, because this room is reasonably important in the history of Final Fantasy VII. Again, this is where everything happens. This is where Sephiroth reads and learns about his lineage and learns about his creation and goes crazy. This is where Cloud and Zack were held for about 4 years and tested on, and this is why Cloud is the way that he is now. and why he keeps having these Genova flickers and why Sephiroth can manipulate him. And as we look through a certain doorway, we start to get the Genova flickers, and we follow the path until we come to 3 containers, all labelled with the letter S. And, you know, we know what this is. We hear Hojo's voice saying a sample of S tissue, a single strand of S hair, and a few drops of S blood. Now S is obviously Sephiroth, and these are referring to S cells, which is the superior line of the Genova project. This is the line of the project that created Sephiroth, and this is the line of the project that was used to test on Cloud and Zack. So yeah, super fun room there. Super fun room. And this explains obviously the connection between Cloud and Sephiroth and why it is as strong as it is. The effect didn't really happen on Zack because he'd already received soldier enhancements, whereas with Cloud he was a blank slate pretty much. And he clearly has an affinity for the S cells because he's not turned into a black cloak or gone crazy yet. He's getting there, but not yet. He's lasted longer than most. Anyway, Vincent interrupts us. He's not happy about the fact that we went into the room with the S cells, and so he throws us out. Cloud gets a bit testy with him, and we end up having a fight against Gallium Beast Vincent, which is interesting, it's fun, it's a fun little fight. Does leave me wondering if we will ever get to use these in combat, because I'm not sure how it'd work. Like, he would just have to pretty much become a summon at that point in order for it to work. I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how Vincent works in combat, but we do the fight and it's a fun fight. You get to the end of it, you beat Vincent up, and Vincent kind of tucks his tail between his legs and runs off back to his box. But just before he does, Kate Sith kind of steps in there and he's like, I know your story, Vincent. I know all about you. I know what went on. You might want to come with us. Which Vincent refuses and tells us to get out immediately. So we leave Vincent to his broody angriness, and we'll never see him again, obviously. Anyway, we get outside, and Kate tells us that we've got the information for the temple, so let's go. But before we do, we need to head to the saucer, because we need something called the Keystone, and the last place that the Keystone was seen was at the Gold Saucer. So that's an easy choice for where to look first. We leave the Shinra mansion and we head back to Nibelheim's centre, and as we do, Roche arrives. And yep, he's on that bike again. First off, I don't know how the bike doesn't just detonate as he lands it, because he's nose first going straight at the ground. Like, I'm sorry, but come on. And then he blows the bike up anyway by slamming it into a big rock. I don't get it. Why are you, Roche? Why are you? Now, as he stands there and faces off against Cloud, the very first thing that happens is he flickers to Sephiroth. And Sephiroth is showing that ability to project himself through anybody who has been affected by Genova. Roche has now been treated by Hojo and given a special treatment, as Hojo himself said, so Sephiroth can keep pushing himself through Roche's body just to get a message to Cloud and just to mess with Cloud and tell him, bring me the black materia, bring me the black materia. Oh Cloud, I want that black materia. However, it becomes apparent very quickly that Roche is in a bad way. Roche is struggling, and Roche himself says that, you know, this is what he gets for pushing himself too far, but he wants this dub. He wants this dub more than anything against Cloud. And, you know, we're obviously not going to let him have that dub, so let's beat Roche up. And once you get him down to very low HP, he almost gives up. He's kind of just stood there letting you wail on him. He throws the odd attack out there, but he's done by that point. Finish him off with a big attack, and he collapses to the floor with quite an amusing cross-eyed look on his face. I might make it the thumbnail. I'm very tempted to make it the thumbnail. You'll know by now if I did or not. But then the other black cloaks just huddle around him, and a black cloak just appears on Roche out of nowhere. So clearly there is cloak materia somewhere knocking about, and you just cast the cloak materia and the black cloak appears. But after this, Roche immediately says black materia, and then there is no escaping the degradation. Both things that Sephiroth is trying to drill into Cloud's head. Like, he wants him to bring him the black materia, and he wants Cloud to think that he's on the brink of collapse. Because if Cloud thinks he's on the brink of collapse, It'll probably end up on the brink of collapse. That's how unstable Cloud is at this point. So Roche immediately becomes a puppet. We flash back to Midgar. Now, this is an interesting one for me because, again, we don't know the state of Midgar, but we'll stick to what happens first. Glenn gives a press conference, basically, talking about how he's in charge of the Wutai resistance, and the hour is upon us when we've got to rise up against Shinra, and basically it's a big call to arms. It's a massive call to arms speech, saying about how the Junon Canon was a flagrant flouting of the peace treaty between Shinra and Wutai, and then they found out that Shinra were growing monsters in the reactors, Genova Project, so they sent some people to go and investigate it, as is part of the peace treaty apparently, the ceasefire treaty, and then Shinra murdered them all. So obviously this has been orchestrated between Glenn and Rufus, and yeah, it's not looking good for Gaia. It's really not looking good for Gaia going into Game 3. Shit is going to hit the fan in a massive way. But the thing that I'm the most interested in, first off, Viceroy Saruf doesn't show up, what a shock, and we'll talk about that in a couple of videos when it cycles back round. But this Midgar that we're seeing right now, which Midgar is it? We don't see a stamp, be it Beagle or Terrier or otherwise. We don't see any of that. We do see Elmira looking up at the screen, and we do see Rufus reacting to this afterwards. So is this broadcast going across to both Midgars? And this comes round to a weird thought that I've been having, and again, I'm going to keep this video short. No, I'm not. Why do I lie to myself? But something weird's going on with Midgar. We know that there's a new world that's created, and that's the Terrier timeline. We know that that happens. But how extensive is that world? Is it just a Midgar in a bubble? Which is something that a lot of people were believing it was previously, you know, before Rebirth came out. I was kind of in that camp that it could be like a little bubble Midgar that just exists outside of reality. Things are a little bit different from that now that we've had the clarification of the worlds, but could this world literally just encapsulate Midgar because of like the location and the method in which the bubble was created at the end of Remake? And if that's the case, does that mean that we've got two Midgars occupying the same space in a world? So in the world that we are existing in right now, the Remake world, are there two Midgars that are kind of sharing the same spot and both getting the same information, but one of them is inaccessible to us? Again, we don't get to go back to Midgar in Rebirth, and this is quite upsetting to me. Because before we even got Rebirth, I was saying, first thing I want to do is turn around and look at Midgar and see what's going on there. And you can turn around and look at Midgar a little bit in the distance, but you can't really make anything out or tell anything. You can't get close to Midgar. You don't get anything from Midgar. So I think they're being purposefully ambiguous about the state of Midgar. Yes, we have this second world, third world, fourth world by the end, fifth world by the end of it, all kind of existing within that Midgar area. But do those worlds expand beyond Midgar? That's the question. And scenes like this make me think no, because both versions of Midgar seem to get this speech and seem to react to this speech. So yeah, there's something not quite adding up. There's something not quite adding up. And again, it makes me think that the world that we are existing in now, the remake world, the Beagle timeline, isn't the OG world. I keep coming back to this, and this is going to be a big thing we're going to talk about, especially when we get to the final video. But I've thought this for a long time. I've thought this since about a year after Remake came out. What if we're not in the OG world anymore? And back then we were referring to it as timelines, you know, different timelines. Now we know that the game is classifying them as worlds that exist within the system of the planet, of course, within the live stream, but they're still real. And especially if Remake's world isn't the OG world, then Remake's world is as real as all of the other timelines. Well, worlds, and they all are as real as each other. And when you look at it that way, and you think that this message has been sent out in our world, the Remake world, which is one of these worlds existing within the live stream, that would then add to the memories of the live stream. and therefore would impact the worlds that also exist within the live stream potentially. I don't know, but there's some sort of weird connection between the two Midgars, because like I say, it seems like this message gets through in both worlds. This is definitely going to end up being one of the more covered subjects on the channel once I finish this breakdown series, figuring out what the state of the worlds are and things like that, because yeah, it's super interesting and it could really heavily inform the narrative and where it goes. So yeah, we're going to be looking into this, but I just thought it was interesting that it showed us the scene that it showed us in Midgar. Doesn't clarify which timeline, which makes me think that it doesn't matter which timeline. World. Sorry, I still call them timelines every now and again because that's where I'm at. But yeah, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it happens in both and therefore it doesn't matter which world it is. Anyway, let's get moving. We're nearly there. So Glenn, super pissed at Midgar and Shinra, declares war basically over the airwaves, and then calls out Viceroy Saruf, who no-shows. Again, we'll come to that later. And we then cut to the boardroom with Rufus, Scarlet, Palmer, Reeve, Heidegger, the usual gang, Sung's even there. We're all having a little watch of this impromptu broadcast. Sung then gives us a little bit of information, with authority from Rufus, of course. When Scarlet starts asking questions, we find out that we don't know anything about Viceroy Saruf. Wonder why. And then we find out about Glenn, how he's a prototype soldier, a P0 soldier who went on a mission to Rador and defected. And again, if you want all of the details on the first soldier and the mission to Rador that leads to these events, you can go and check out my video series on it. 8 videos breaking down all of the first soldier so far, so yeah, check it out. But we learn about Glenn and how he connected up with other people who were anti-Shinra, which sends Heidegger into a fit of rage about Avalanche. I'm so glad that we've triggered him. I'm so glad that Avalanche lives rent-free in Heidegger's brain. But then Palmer says, probably the most accurate thing I think Palmer's ever said, which is, yeah, of course they hate us. We ruined them, took everything, destroyed everything, slapped them around and left them in the dirt. I'd be amazed if they didn't hate us. So yeah, based Palmer there. And then Reeve hops in saying it's a pity about Saruf, it'd be good to put a face to the name. To which Rufus kind of gives Sung a look of, let's move on. And it makes me think, is Reeve sus about Rufus being Saruf? Has Reeve figured it out in some capacity? He's an intelligent guy, so I'd like to think he has. Anyway, after that we see a shot of the party, and Rufus talks about how she'll lead us to the promised land whether she wants to or not, which is a pretty big flip-flop for Rufus from earlier on where he was like, I don't give a shit about the promised land, fuck that place. It's a bit of a flip-flop from him. Bit of a weird flip-flop from him. And the scene ends with Rufus grilling Reeve, just glaring at him, so yeah, there's tension there between those two. Rufus knows that Reeve is not to be fucked with, and not to be underestimated, I think, while Reeve knows that Rufus is super sus. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic pans out between those two. But then we cut back to the party, we're in Nibelheim, and we're discussing how we're going to get to the Gold Saucer. And, obviously we're not going to walk. So let's go find Sid. And weirdly, before we can go and summon Sid using the smoke signal, we see a smoke signal in the distance. So we think, yeah, let's go hitch a ride. Which is the end of the story segments of this chapter pretty much, except for one more thing. We've got side quests to deal with. The first one is going and gathering up cats. Young Fluffy, who lived in the village many, many years ago. So we go, we rescue Fluffy, we escort Fluffy. We bring Fluffy and the kittens back, and then we play some piano for the animals. There's cats everywhere. You can't really go wrong. Everyone loves cats, right? We all love cats. But then we do get a nice little moment between Tifa and Cloud where Tifa points out, we used to invite you all the time to come and hang with us, Cloud, but you always used to stay on your own, so we thought you preferred that. And Cloud was like, what, you used to think I preferred being alone? Wow. Wow. But Cloud also points out that it's never too late to make up for lost time. So it's a nice little moment that points out that Cloud definitely was out of the loop when they were kids. He wasn't close to Tifa and the others, really. But he wanted to be. And he still wants to be. So it's a nice little moment. It's a good moment. After that, we've got to head to the Chocobo Sage's house. But before we do, as we're leaving Nibelheim, we hear over the radio about the broadcast that happened and how Shinra are reacting to that. So we know that the ramifications of that are being felt, at the very least, around the world, and we're going to see an escalation of things regarding Wutai and the resistance to Shinra. Anyway, we head to the Chocobo Sage's house, and we just race an old guy. He's not super easy to beat, but he's pretty easy to beat. And it's interesting how they've moved the Chocobo Sage from the Northern Continent. They're definitely making the Northern Continent a much more serious place. Like, it was very serious in the OG, but they seem to have taken some of the slightly more amusing aspects out of that area and brought them further south. Also, I think because, you want to squeeze them into the second game, because proportionally, you would meet the Chocobo Sage on Disc 2. So, this is essentially Disc 2 of the Rebirth project, the remake project even. So, we meet the Chocobo Sage. And again, I've pointed it out before, things are being brought forwards so that we can experience them roughly in the same spot that they would have happened on Disc 2 of the OG. But it isn't the same, because narratively, we're not at the same place that we would be at these points in the game. So, there's a few little weird moments like that. I pointed one out in the last video, I think it was. And yeah, it makes me wonder about how the structure of Part 3 is going to work. Definitely something we're going to look into. But the whole point of this is that young Billy is here doing some training with the Chocobo Sage, and we get a little bit of information on the past between Sam and Will, which is Billy's father, and we find out about how they were both really gifted Chocobo breeders and Chocobo raisers, but they had different ideologies about how to go about things, and this led to them fighting and arguing and everything like that. And after he's told all the stories about young Will and Sam, he turns to Billy and he says that he saw how angry he was, so he just wanted to give him some time to work through his anger. And he tries to remind Billy why he raises Chocobos in the first place, and it isn't for revenge, it's because he saw how happy it made his parents, and he wanted to do that as well. So, Billy's going through his journey, we're getting close to Billy being happy. So, good times. Good times. But after that, there's not really much left to do in the Nibel region, so let's head back to the airstrip and meet our old friend Sid. Now, when we get there, we finally get a conversation with Sid, which we haven't really had yet. It's all been business transactions. And the conversation's weird, man. It's a super weird conversation. I kind of get why they've done it, to kind of manufacture a relationship between Sid and Aerith so that Sid is more willing to help, and it makes the things that he goes on to do make more sense in the future and in the next game. It makes his connection to the party make more sense. Although, I'm going to be honest, I think the hatred of Shinra would probably have done it. But we've kind of contrived this situation where Sid knew Ifalna from back in the day. And I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if it's bad or good. I'm indifferent to it, I think. I think I'm just indifferent to it. I didn't need it, but I don't hate it. I think that's where I'm at with this. Basically, Sid was a dog's body at the Shinra HQ running around doing bits and pieces, and one day he bumped into Ifalna carrying a baby Aerith around, and he obviously developed a mega crush on Ifalna at this point, and that stuck with him for a long time. And he says about how he recognised Aerith immediately. He could see Ifalna in Aerith immediately. And he takes it bad that she's died. It hits him. It hits him. He obviously had some degree of feelings for her. And he offers to help Aerith in any way. Anything that he can do to help Aerith, he wants to help. And my theory brain's kicking in. It makes me think back to Remake, when Aerith reaches out and touches Red 13 and transfers memories to him, and at the same time it happens with Marlene and Aerith. It's happened multiple times with people and ancients, let's put it that way. So what if there is a moment of physical contact, like if Anna reaches out and puts a hand on Sid's shoulder and shows him images of the future and the fact that her daughter will need help? What if that happens, and that's why Sid's acting weird now? Because it is a bit weird. It is a bit weird. Let's be honest, it's a little bit weird. Not in a creepy way, but it's just a little bit weird. It feels a bit out of character for Sid, if you know OG Sid. At least at this early stage when he doesn't really know us at all. But again, it makes sense that they've done something like this to knit Sid into the team and legitimise him wanting to help us. We all get onto the plane, and Vincent joins us. Little Vinny has decided that he doesn't want to be in a box anymore, and he's going to come and, you know, fuck around with Sephiroth for a bit. So he joins us. Cloud gives him a straight up, if you fought with us, I'm going to kill you threat. And Vincent just kind of like, yeah, okay. And goes and sits down. I like the moment where Sid turns around as well. He's like, yo, is he bothering you? I can get rid of him if you want. Which is hinting towards the fact that Sid is no slouch. If Sid's happy to turn around in a situation where Cloud and the gang get armed to the teeth, stood in front of this one guy, and Sid turns around like, yo, do you want me to deal with him? It suggests that Sid is confident in his abilities at the very least. Let's put it that way. But yeah, that's the end of the chapter. We take off, we start flying towards Gold Saucer, the engines on the plane pack up, and we crash land. And that ends the chapter. And we will pick up in the next episode, in the water, trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, a bit of a mixed chapter. There were moments that were rough, like the Kate Sith sections, I hated that. But narratively, a lot of interesting things happen here. We see Cloud's memory start to come back to him a little bit, but then Jenova correct it again. He remembers Zack, but he gets a false memory of what happened to Zack. We also go to the reactor and we get some scenes there. We get the whole escalation of the Wutai situation and Rufus and Shinra and everything like that. We learn that Nibelheim's been turned into a medical facility, essentially, and that the Black Cloaks have all started acting differently recently. We also get Roche turning into a Black Cloak, which is crazy. I mean, we knew it was coming, but it was very sudden the way it did happen. It was a bit shocking the way it did happen, and you can see how that had pushed Cloud deeper into that oh my god, I'm degrading mindset, because he just watched it happen in front of his eyes. So yeah, crazy chapter in general. Things are picking up now. Chapter 12 is going to be a fun one, and then we're into the final two chapters, and I can't wait to do a proper full breakdown of chapter 13, because chapter 13 is crazy. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this one. It's another 50-minute. I don't even know why I lied to you at the start of the video. I knew this was going to go long. I knew it. But yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Let me know about any theories or thoughts that you might have about anything that goes down in this chapter. Like the video, subscribe for future content, give the video a share, but more importantly than all of that, have a great day.